Okay, dear student, welcome to session 11, research objectives and questions. By the end of this session, I'm expecting you to be able to write an introduction to research proposal. At the end of this session, I'm expecting you to be able to write an introduction to research proposal, to define general and specific objectives, to define the characteristics of research objectives, to state the difference between general and specific objectives, to be able to prepare research objectives in an appropriate format for the project you're developing. Develop research questions appropriate for the study. In this, the introduction leads the reader from general subject area to a particular topic of inquiry. It establishes the scope, context, and the significance of the research being conducted by summarizing current understanding and background information about the topic. Stating the purpose of the work in form of the research problem supported by a hypothesis or set of questions. Explaining briefly the methodological approach used to examine the research problem. Highlighting the potential outcome your study can reveal and outline the remaining structure and organization of the paper. Actually, this is the introduction part, and we say the introduction leads the reader from a general subject area to particular topic of inquiry. When mtu anaposoma parti la introduction inamtoa kutoka kwenye ile general subject area na kwenda to a particular topic of inquiry. It establishes the scope, context, and the significance of the research being conducted by summarizing current understanding and the background information about the topic, stating the purpose of the work in the form of the research problem supported by a hypothesis or set of questions, explaining briefly the methodological approach used to examine research problem, highlighting the potential outcome your study can reveal, and outlining the remaining structure and organization of the paper. We're going to see because tutakuwa na mfano wa research proposal. Maybe immediately after this session, then we see actually that introduction part we are talking about. What does it contain? All this information that we have been trying to discuss here, how are they arranged in this introduction part? When we see the background information or understanding of background information, how summarizing the current understanding. What does it mean? Are you getting? When we get this general concept, then we go and see a very specific concept of research proposal. How does a research proposal look? When we say this introduction containing A, B, C, D, what do you see into our research proposal? That is actually what we're going to do, and that is actually what we're going to see. So we should not worry about this. Immediately after this lecture or this session, we're going to see an example of this research proposal. Think of the introduction as a mental road map that must answer for the reader these 4 questions. When a reader read your introduction, these 4 questions must be answered. What was I studying? What actually your study is basing on? That should be the first question the reader should be answered by your introduction part. Why was this topic important to investigate? Your introduction part must write why, how, or it must show the importance of conducting such a study. So why was this topic important to investigate? And actually, when we see the thesis or when we see the problem of the statement, also the problem of statement from there, it gives the clear picture about what has been studied or what influenced a researcher to do such a research. But your introduction part should also answer this question. Why was this topic important to investigate? Then next, what did we know about this topic before I did this study? Which means that part of literature review, as you said, that you have been reviewed what have been done in the past, so that you carried on doing into present. Are we getting? So a reader akiwa naisoma introduction part, this question should be answered. What did we know about this topic before I did this study? How will this study advance new knowledge or new ways of understanding? The importance of your study or the expected outcome of your study. Your introduction part should give the clear picture of this, because the reader should understand or should get the clear picture on this. So according to Reyes, there are three overarching goals of good introduction. Reyes said there are three overarching goals of a good introduction. And what are these? First, ensure that you summarize prior studies about the topic in a manner that lays a foundation for understanding the research problem. Ensure that you summarize prior studies about the topic in a manner that lays a foundation for understanding the research problem. We discussed this point several times into session 8. And I go there, you see, when we pass through session 8 and coming, you get the concept of what actually I'm saying now. So first, ensure that you summarize prior studies about the topic in a manner that lays a foundation for understanding the research problem. Second, explain how your study specifically addresses gaps in the literature, insufficient consideration of the topic, or other deficiencies in the literature. Third, note the broader theoretical, empirical, or policy contributions and implications of your research. This is according to Reyes, who said there are overarching goals of the good introduction, and these are the three overarching goals of the introduction part of your research. I'll say first, second, and third. This is too common. I think everyone will understand that common sense is not common. But I think when you use your common sense, it's easy to understand this. Because most of what we see here, we tried to explain previously. Let's see the definition of general and specific objectives. General and specific objectives. First, objectives. What are objectives? Objectives are a summary of what is intended to be achieved by the study. These objectives are a summary of what is intended to be achieved by the study. Actually, nini kimekufanya unafanya hiyo study ili uje kupata nini? What are your expectations? Wow, you're doing that ili kutokea nini? So these objectives are a summary of what is intended to be achieved by the study. We have general objectives, also known as broad objectives. General objectives or broad objectives. The objective of research project summarizes what is to be achieved by the study. The general objective of a study states what is expected to be achieved by the study in general terms. The general objective of a study states what is expected to be achieved by the study in general terms. It is possible and advisable to break down a general objectives into smaller, logically connected parts. And when you break down this general objective into smaller, logical connected parts, they are referred as specific objectives. You study broad objectives, you narrow them. And when the broad objectives are narrowed, we get specific objectives. That's why I say it is possible or advisable to break down the general objectives into smaller, logically connected parts. These are normally referred as specific objectives. Specific objectives are related to core problem, shows targeted population and place, use action verb, normally only one per stud. Normally only one per stud. Let's see the specific objectives. Our specific objectives explain the broad objectives in specific, should systematically address the various aspects of the problem, key factors that are assumed to influence or cause the problem. They should specify what will do in your stud, where, and for what purpose. Specific objectives explain the broad objective in specific, should systematically address the various aspects of the problem, key factors that are assumed to influence or cause the problem. They should specify what will do in your stud, where, and for what purpose. Usually focuses on quantifying or specifying the problem. Hypothesis, which is a statement or specific prediction about the nature and expected direction of the relationship between two or more variables that permit empirical testing. Now we have methodology, an art and science of conducting research, such that the data, finding, and conclusion are credible and acceptable. It is the guiding theory or discipline and analysis of how research should be proceeded. Work plan, schedule chart or graph that summarizes the different components of a research project and how they will be implemented in coherent way within a specific time span. So when having that in the introduction part, we come to general objectives, then specific objectives, then the methodology which carry out your research, but also go to the work plan which give the schedule chart or graph that summarizes the different components of research project and how they'll be implemented in coherent way within a specific time span. Budget, estimated cost of activities to be incurred in a research. Research studies should include statement of broad objective, specific objective, hypothesis, but we said hypothesis, it depends with kind of study or the study design. Some study design do not have this. And we said, for example, if the case of purely exploratory or descriptive studies, they have no hypothesis. Then why should a researcher or research objective be developed? Why should you develop the research objectives? We develop research objectives to clarify and focus our intention or focus the study, narrowing it down to essentials. That's why we say to clarify and focus your intention, focus the study, to have a basis for measuring your achievement at the end of the study, to avoid the collection of data which are not strictly necessary for understanding and solving the problem you have identified, to organize the study in clearly defined parts or phases, to facilitate the development of your research methodology and orient the collection, analysis, interpretation, and utilization of data. You can see in this slide, there are so many bulleting, so it was a mistake. Some appeared to some sentence which they were not supposed to have these bullets. For example, the last sentence as I read, they have to facilitate the development of your research methodology and the oriented the collection, analysis, interpretation, and utilization of data. You can see the bulleting and analysis. This bulleting should not be there. Also, to avoid the collection of data which are not strictly necessary for understanding and solving the problem you have identified. Now, bullet is not that is not a big problem, so long as when I'm reading my sentences, I'm trying to avoid this bulleting to show that they are not there. Then let's see the characteristics of research objectives. We say objectives must be smart. We say objectives must be smart. Smart, S stands for specific. Specify exactly what you are going to do, where and for what purpose. M stands for measurable, that your objective can be evaluated. A stands for action oriented, and R stands for realistic, considering local conditions can be done. T stands for time bound. Time bound, when exactly will the activities be carried out? Or when exactly will the activities be carried out? Whatever the accent or the command, I think we understand the concept. Objectives should be closely related to the statement of the problem. Do you see now? Objectives should be closely related to statement of the problem. When you write your objectives, or when you write your problem or statement, it gives you the insight of many things, maybe the picture of all that you're going to do. That is objectives, which must be closely related to statement of the problem. For example, if the problem identified is low utilization of child welfare clinics, then the general objective of the study could be identify the reason for this low utilization in order to find solutions. Nafikiri hapa tunaelewa. Tusema kama tatizo na identify ni low utilization of child welfare clinics, then the general objective of the study could be to identify the reasons for this low utilization in order to find solutions. Formulating specific objectives. We said specific objectives, they are formulated from general objectives. We get it. When we try to break down the general objectives, we come with the specific objectives. So specific objectives should systematically address the various aspects of the problem as defined under statement of the problem, and the key factors that are assumed to influence or cause the problem. This also is very common, although most of the time I'm saying common sense is not common. But for us, I think we can understand this. Specific objectives should systematically address the various aspects of the problem as defined under the statement of the problem. And the key factors that are assumed to influence or cause the problem. They should specify what we'll do in your study, where and for what purpose. The first specific objective usually focuses on quantifying or specifying the problem. The first specific objective usually focuses on quantifying or specifying the problem. It may be helpful to use the diagram as a point of departure and check whether the problem and all major directly contributing factors in analytic study or major component descriptive or evaluation study have been covered by the objectives. An objective indicating how the result will be used should be included in every operational study, either as part of the general objectives or as a specific objectives. An objective indicating how the result will be used or how the result will be used should be included in every operational study, either as part of the general objectives or as a specific what? Objective. Let's go and see how to state objective. It should cover the different aspects of the problem and its contributing factors in a coherent way and in a logical sequence. Are clearly phrased in operational terms, specifying exactly what you're going to do, where and for what purpose. Are realistic considering local conditions. Use action verb that are specific enough to be evaluated. Use action verb that are specific enough to be evaluated. Example of action verb are to determine, to reduce, to compare, to verify, to calculate, to describe, to establish. I think we are getting the picture of this. When we say use action verb that are specific enough to be evaluated. And example of action verb are to determine, to reduce, to compare, to verify, to calculate, to describe, and to establish. You can see we have been using this action verb also in what? In implicit question in writing a problem of statement. Avoid the use of vague non-action verbs such as to appreciate, to understand, or to start. Example of broad objectives: to reduce infant mortality by 30% within a period of 6 years by improving access and use of insecticide impregnated bed nets in District A. Example of a broad objective is to reduce infant mortality by 30% within a period of 6 years by improving access and use of insecticide impregnated bed nets in District A. Example specific objective from the above broad objectives: to increase availability of insecticide impregnated bed nets at retailer shops and MCH clinics, we know mother and child clinics, to 100% within 3 years in District A. Do you see? From a broad objectives, we know they want to reduce mortality rate by 30% within the period of 6 years by improving access and use of what? Insecticide impregnated bed nets in District A. Lakini unapokuja ku extract a specific objective kutoka kwenye hii broad objectives, ndo tunakuja mfano, unajua the point in impregnated net, umeona, ambazo ndo zinaweza zikafanyaje, hizi impregnated bed nets ndio ambazo zinaweza kureduce hii mortality rate by 30% within 6 years. Are we getting? So we are not going to take these measures in 6 years, but we did somewhere within 6 years, because after 6 years it's evaluation. So your specific objectives might be to increase availability of insecticide impregnated bed nets at retailer shops and mother and child health clinics to 100% within 3 years in District A. Lakini pia inaweza kuwa to increase the proportion of household with the insecticide treated net by 60% within 3 years in District A. Do you see? Here, availability of insecticide impregnated bed nets at retailer shops and what? Mother and child health clinics. But also, unaweza ukashua increase utilization or to increase the proportion of a household with the insecticide treated net by 60% within 3 years in District A. But also it can be to increase utilization of insecticide impregnated bed nets at a household level to 80% within 4 years in District A. or to ensure that 80% of under 5 children sleeping under insecticide-treated net within 4 years in District A, or to determine reduction of under 5 mortality by 30% at the end of 6 years of the intervention in District A. Note, keep in mind that when the project is evaluated, the result will be compared to the objectives. If the objectives have not been spelled out clearly, the project can not be evaluated. Tumeona, nafikiri tunaelewa ni jinsi gani tunaweza tuka break down a broad objective into specific what objective. So that was too broad, but what should be done actually from that broad to narrow the broad objectives to get what actually we are supposed to. Let's go to the difference between general and specific objectives. Even before seeing here, I think now we all have the picture of the difference between the two. If someone asks you to write down the difference between general and specific objectives, you can write something down. So general objectives are broad and long term, while specific objectives are short term and narrow in focus. Are we getting? What I said, the general objective, as far as our example concerned, the general objective is 30% 6 years. But specific objectives, you break it down into what? Into short period of time, to make sure when these specific objectives are carried on, they will accomplish the general objective. That's why we break down the general objectives or broad objective to get specific what? Objectives. That's why I say general objectives are broad and long term, while specific objectives are short term and narrow in focus. So the general objective is met through accomplishing each of the specific objective. Specific objective is to specify what really you want to concentrate with or what you want to do. Show the main point you're focusing to. The general objective is met through accomplishing each of the specific objectives. Specific objective is to specify what really you want to concentrate with or what you want to do. Show the main point you're focusing to. This is what I was trying to explain. Nilikuwa najaribu kueleza kwamba tunapo break down the broad objective to write the specific objective. When you accomplish specific objective, actually you have carried on the general objective. Because the general objective say that 30% within 6 years, but you have to break it down because in a very short period of time, you must divide the task to be carried on. I hope you understand this concept. Okay, let's go to development of research questions appropriate for the start. Research questions. Statement that identifies the phenomena, situation, or setting characteristic to be studied. Example, what resources are helpful to students studying qualitative method? What resources are helpful to students studying qualitative method? Or what is the impact of marriage, parenthood on HIV and AIDS pandemic? Or to what extent has the Disability Discrimination Act changed employers' practices? Or to what extent does insecurity risk affect attitudes to employment, family life, health, identity? It's absolutely essential to develop a research questions that you are interested in or care about in order to focus your research. For example, researching a broad topic such as business management is difficult since there are maybe hundreds of sources on all aspects of business management. On the other hand, a focused question such as what are the pros and cons of Japanese management style is easier to research and can be covered more fully and in more depth, because actually you have been specific, Japanese style. But when you say business management, it's too broad. So let's go to how do you develop usable research questions. Um, Choose an appropriate topic or issue for your research, one that actually can be researched. Then list all of your questions that you would like answered yourself. Choose the best question, one that is neither too broad nor too narrow. Because when you have seen the problem, kama kuna tatizo, sawa, kuna maswali ambayo utajiuliza, na haya maswali ambayo utajiuliza, when you get the answers of your questions, are you getting? Which means you get the answers after going to what? After carrying on your study. So you may ask yourself so many questions, but out of those many questions, you may select a few or a question which is not too broad or too narrow. But actually, when you get the answer of this, you may get the answers for all. So choose the best question, one that is neither too broad nor too narrow. Sometimes the number of sources you find will help you discover whether your research question is too broad, too narrow, or okay. If you know a lot about the topic, you can develop a research question based on your own knowledge. If you feel you don't know much about the topic, think again. So it's a good idea to evaluate your research questions and to ask for feedback on your research question. Example, choose a question that is neither too broad or too narrow. For example, if you choose juvenile delinquency, a topic that can be researched, you might ask the following question. What is 1994 rate of juvenile delinquency in the US? What can we do to reduce juvenile delinquency in the US? Does education play a role in reducing juvenile delinquencies and return to crime? Once you complete your list, review your question in order to choose a usable one that is neither too broad nor too narrow. In this case, the best research questions are three. Question 1 is too narrow, since it can be answered with a simple statistic. Question 2 is too broad. It implies that the researcher will cover many tactics for reducing juvenile delinquency that could be used throughout the country. But question 3, on the other hand, is focused enough to research in some depth. And our question 3, does education play a role in reducing juvenile delinquency, return to crime? This can be researchable, but what can we do to reduce juvenile delinquency in the US? That is too broad. Or what is 1994 rate of juvenile delinquency in the US? That is too narrow. Key point: writing introduction to research proposal. Lead the reader from a general subject area to particular topic of inquiry. The general objective of study states what is expected to be achieved by the study in general terms. Specific objective explain the broad objective in specific. Evaluation. Try to answer this question by yourself. What is objectives? What are general and specific objectives? What are characteristics of research objectives? Thank you very much. This is the end of session 11. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being there. Hope